for years. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you. Continue. So we're going to hand off the controls now to Jacques. He's going to give us a little bit of some insight into his life and to his art. And Jacques, if you can be kind enough to do a little balance en français, anglais, just a little combination to make things work. I think that would be very, very nice. And I'm going to hand the microphone to our good friend Jacques. Good evening, Jacques.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you very much. So I'm going to share my screen here with this one here. Okay, and let's see. Okay, is it all right with everybody?
Oh,
Ouais, c'est parfait.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Well,
On le voit.
okay, so well, this is supposed to be me, and I want to thank Wes and especially Terry, who invited me for giving this lecture this evening, and Robert Lafontaine, who is kind of special because that's because of Robert that I met Terry. Of course, I knew Terry for many years, but I met Terry Aislinn personally at the Mille et un Visages, the Robert Lafontaine's festival in Val-David. So it was a very nice thing, and there happened to be an exhibition, and of course there were cartoons, illustrations, and Terry noticed my drawings, and he invited me to draw for the Gazette. No, before that, we had a smoke meet at Leicester's on the street. Very, and you know, when you go and have a smoke meet with Terry at Leicester's, you see all the people there kneeling down in front of Terry, and you're lucky enough to be with no. So that was a great opportunity. That was 5 years ago in 2016, and I was pretty nervous when Terry asked me to draw for the Gazette. I never thought about that, but that was a great opportunity. So there we go. First, I want to un hommage à Ali Ferzat, ou Ali Ferzet. You can write it both ways, and he's maybe you know him. He is a Syrian cartoonist. And a few years ago, he had problems with someone called Bashar al-Assad, who is the leader, the dictator of Syria. And I think that a few of his cartoons didn't please the dictator. Il y a quelques-unes de ses caricatures qui n'ont pas plu à Bashar al-Assad. And Bashar al-Assad talked to his friends, and they managed to break Ali Ferzat's fingers and both arms. So he was very lucky to survive to such a treatment. And now Ali Ferzat is in Kuwait. So he survived. He's in Kuwait, and I guess he's still drawing, maybe with his feet. I don't know exactly, but just a reminder that we are very lucky in Canada to do our job and to do it safely, you know. Whereas in many countries, I don't know about Mali. It would be interesting that other man talk about that later. But you know, in many countries, I think that in most countries in the world, being a cartoonist is pretty dangerous. This is the cartoon that infuriated Bachar el-Assad. So, ça, c'est le dessin qui a enragé Bachar el-Assad. From my point of view, this is not so terrible. So you have Bashar al-Assad on the lower right there, and he's watching himself into a mirror, and he sees a very powerful man, but he's so tiny. But this was enough to get Ali Ferzat in very, very deep trouble. So this drawing here is about, this is a cartoonist, a French cartoonist. I have to say that both my parents are French, I was born in Quebec, but my father was from Paris and my mother is from Brittany. And when I was a kid, we received this magazine, this French magazine called Paris Match. It was a very popular French magazine. And you had these cartoonists in Paris Match, like Sampé. Maybe you know Sampé. He draws cover for the New Yorker. He's world famous. Sempe, very, very good. And this one here, his name was Bosc, B-O-S-C, and he was a monument in France. He really was. And his cartoons were very popular in the 50s and 60s and 70s. He died very early. I think it was in 1973, and he was young. He was in his early 40s or something like this. So this is the kind of cartoon that I was attracted to when I was a kid, you know. It was very simple, very, very effective. This one is also by Bosc also. So just imagine you're a kid and you're watching these drawings and they are very simply made, very not very complicated, and you wonder, you say, well, maybe I could draw something like this. This was fun. This is another drawing of Bosc also. A very typical character like this, and it reminds me in 1967 at Expo 67 there was a pavilion called the Pavillon de l'Humour, the humor pavilion, and that was directed by Georges-Émile Lapalme, a famous cartoonist, and you had these cartoons from people coming from all over the world, but I remember cartoonists from Eastern Europe, coming from Romania, Poland, Hungary, and you had a very special style. I mean, nothing like what we saw in North America. Very, very simple drawing, and very often silent cartoons, you know, against war and very typical cases like that. It was very, very impressive. And there I discovered a lot of cartoonists and very, very efficient and very simple style. So it really struck me. This is a cartoonist I love. That's David Lowe. I guess everybody knows him. Tout le monde le connaît. C'est David Lowe, un caricaturiste anglais. And you have to fall in love with this style. Very simple. That's the opposite of Bosc, okay? Because here you have, he really masters the drawing and the ambiance, the nuance, the use of charcoal also. And when you look at the postures and the attitudes of Hitler, and you have Stalin and the corpse of Poland between them, this and the way they hold their hat, this is wonderful. It could be a silent cartoon, but maybe I was 12 or 13 years old when I saw this cartoon, and thanks to my father, and I was struck. I said, wow, what a master. Wonderful, wonderful cartoon. And that's another one by David Lowe also. And this is the man who took the lid off, l'homme qui a soulevé le couvercle. Et on a Mussolini, this is Mussolini. And very simple drawing. It might be heavy, very dark, but it's very simple. You have only two characters, a face and another character. And you can automatically, you can identify Mussolini by his uniform and his face, his hat. That's Mussolini. This is not a German uniform. This is not an American uniform. This is Mussolini. You recognize it. And the use of the shades also in the face of the devil, and the way the flames are coming out of the hole. This is perfect. This drawing is perfect. I mean, yeah, I couldn't draw that. It's beautiful, beautiful drawing. And this artist is Boris Efimov, and that's where I picked up my name, Boris. Boris Efimov was a cartoonist in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s in Soviet Union. And he was one of Stalin's favorite. And he drew cartoons of Hitler during the Second World War after 1941. And devastating cartoons, extrêmement habile. Il dessinait Hitler et toute la bande. Il y a Göring, Himmler, Goebbels en petit singe ici, Rudolf Hess en arrière. These are incredible drawings. His name was Boris Efimov, and he was very nervous because every time the phone rang, he thought that maybe Stalin was mad against him or something like this, against one of his cartoons. So he was very, very nervous. But it seems that he was one of Stalin's favorite cartoonists, and in a certain way, he was right in being nervous because his brother of Boris Efimov was a journalist. He was a writer, and he was executed by Stalin. So it was dangerous business. But Boris Efimov lived to be 101, and he died in the 1990s. Anyway, very, very good artist, also very, very precise, almost a bande dessinée, very, very actual. And this is the magazine I've been working for the last, I would say 30 years, no, 40 years.
Whoa.
So yes, so that's a long time, a very long time. So I started drawing for this magazine that was in 1982. And I'm drawing characters, I'm drawing bande dessinée, comic strips. And it's a science magazine. It's pretty much like Owl's magazine. And there's a lot of science and a lot of humor. So it's interesting because I can draw pretty much whatever I want in my bande dessinée, in my comic strip. So I talk about environment, I can talk about every subject related to science, to new discoveries. Donc, les débrouillards, c'est connu au Québec par plusieurs générations. Donc, ça m'arrive de rencontrer des gens qui ont 40 ans, 45 ans, qui viennent me voir, qui me disent « Ah, j'étais abonné quand j'étais petit. » So that's a monthly magazine. And one thing that is important with Les Débrouillards is that sometimes we talk about politics in the drawings, and I don't think it would be possible at Owl's magazine, but at Les Débrouillards. But it always depends on the editor. I also draw and I write books for children's, like this one was published in English also. It's called The 11th Hour. In French, it's called Je les Gilles. So that's a story about the First World War and two friends who loved playing war when they were kids. And when they grow up in 1914, there are two Canadians and they go in Europe, and they realize that war is not so funny after all. So it's a real description of what was in the trenches and now was the daily life. So it's a book that was used in many schools when the teacher doesn't know how to talk about war, about the First World War. Well, it was a very good graphic book. So and both my grandfathers fought during the war, so it was really an inspiration. So, and there's no subject you can talk about pretty much anything with children. You know, it's not. I remember when I was when my kids were young, and I went to the public library, and boy, sometimes the books were so boring, but you had some little gems, you know, some little pearls, you know, perfect books. And I was picking up the books. So I imagine it's pretty much the same today, you know, the parents have to please themselves because they read the books. So the books have better be interesting for them. So when I write children books, I don't think about the children. I please myself first. And, you know, if the kids like it, that's all right, you know. And in Les Débrouillards, so I do comic strips, I draw comic strips. And this is a very old one, like 30 years ago. And that was about dinosaurs, and there was a fantasy about dinosaurs. So I was drawing the Olympic Stadium here. That was a former dinosaur, a very old dinosaurs. Ici, on a un dinosaure qui est inspiré de Brian Mulroney, le Mulroneysaur, and he's hitting his opponents with his chin. And I was referring here with the Chrétiensaurus also here. So, you know, I think they were well known by the kids and also the parents, because the parents are reading the magazine. You know, the magazines, Les Débrouillards are in the kitchen or in the toilet. So, you know, in the bathroom, so the entire family reads the magazine. So if you have jokes for everybody, that's important. That's another comics also, a more recent one, where the director of the school, is someone who looks like a little bit Donald Trump, but he has blue hair, and he's a very special guy because this director wants to build a wall in the schoolyard. He wants to separate the kids, but not necessarily with the girls and the boys, but he wants to separate the rich kids with the poor kids. And he has special ideas about Darwin and about gravity and all sorts of things, and why he wants to separate the schoolyard, because he wants to separate the children who will be workers, because he wants to transform the school into a power plant, to make money. So the poor kids are going to work like miners into producing energy. And so this is the type of cartoons that I can draw in Les Débrouillards, This is, and usually I'm so I'm very lucky to have an editor like Félix Maltais who loves this kind of semi-political cartoons. And at the end, the director goes to a psychiatric hospital. So you see, it's possible to talk about politics, to talk about the wall, to talk about Donald Trump. Kids know about these phenomena. They hear about that. Ils sont au courant. Ils entendent parler de situations politiques quand ils sont avec leurs parents. Et puis, if they don't understand the cartoon, every aspect of the cartoon, they can ask their parents, well, why is this situation like this? And then it starts a debate, and you can talk about this. So I think that you can go a little farther with kids. When I visit school, kids are 8, 9 years old. You can talk to them about cartoons and stuff like that. That's the inspiration also. That's a cartoon published at the Gazette. So you have Donald Trump here. He's having a leak on the ice shelf, and he's causing trouble for the environment. Et là, on a le petit prince qui est sur sa planète. Alors, le petit prince qui regarde Donald Trump vraiment très, très désolé. Alors, ça, c'est... And I like silent cartoons. I think that they are the best. And you can see that I work with watercolor. I don't work on with a graphic table or something like this. I work with watercolor. I work with crayons and stuff like that, pastels, and I'm very the old type, the old fashioned. So that's the way it is. And talking about political figures, political characters, when I visit school, I always show some of my work at the Gazette or elsewhere, and kids are really interested. And there are two main characters that they know or that they knew. It's Donald Trump. They recognize him automatically. And when you're in first grade or second grade, that's very surprising. And the other one they know is not necessarily Trudeau, but that's Kim Jong-un. And I don't know why, because of internet, they look at the guy, maybe they don't know the name, but they say, yeah, the Korean guy, and they know it. Maybe for his hairstyle or something like this. Donc, les deux personnages que les enfants connaissent beaucoup, c'est Donald Trump et Kim Jong-un. So that's a source of cartooning, a wonderful source of cartooning. Yeah. And by the way, maybe if I was in North Korea, this cartoon could get me into trouble like this. I'm also drawing for other magazines or other papers, like not very well known in English. Like this one is called Relations, and that's a 100 years old magazine. And this magazine talks about society, about politics, and this cartoon is about the Canadian International Development Agency. So it was a very critical article about the situation in Africa or in South America, where sometimes you have companies, mining companies, Canadian mining companies, who make a lot of profit and don't redistribute profits necessarily in Africa, and they don't. There's a lot of pollution also, and well, it's not very clear situation, and sometimes they will just give a little bit for the villages, but the environment is polluted, and it's not not very good for a Canadian record anyway. Another type of cartoon that I like, also inspired from comic strips, is when you have in a succession of images like this. But sometimes maybe I use it once or twice at the Gazette, but it's very dangerous, because if you have words, if you have bubbles with text, I mean, it could become very heavy, and so it has to be very, very simple. Ce genre de choses, ça doit être très, très simple à utiliser. Il faut que ce soit facile à identifier aussi. Alors là, c'est quelqu'un qui utilise sa voiture, qui prend l'avion, qui prend un taxi pour s'en aller à la conférence sur les changements climatiques. So he travels to the climatic the climatic changes. So and he's a source of pollution by airplanes. So that's a cartoon that was maybe 10 years ago, and still very actual. This is a cartoon for a union, a labor union. I work sometimes for CSN, labor union in Quebec. So very, very simple, très simple, very graphic, So and very effective also. And these situations do not change. Also, it's been like that for the last I would say 500 years, and will be the same in the future. This drawing, I do drawings also for Amnesty International for the last 15 or 20 years also, and Liberté d'expression, freedom of speech. And this drawing, very simple, also 2 colors. And it was inspired by Raif Badawi. I don't know if you know this person. He's very well known in Quebec. And Raif Badawi is a Saudi national, and he wrote a few books. He was also on the internet, and he pleaded for more rights for the homosexuals, for the LGBT community, and more rights for women, and more democracy. And it didn't end up very well for him. He was imprisoned for 10 years. And I guess it's 10th year this year. And he was also condemned to 1,000, how do you say, whiplash? So he's very well known in Quebec because his wife, Ensaf, is living currently in Sherbrooke, and she has three children, and she's very involved with Amnesty International. So she's this is kind of special also, and this is another drawing also for Amnesty International. So you have the young man here, and you have this old lady, and he says beau temps pour étendre. Alors ça, c'est un dessin pour Amnesty International. Il y avait toute une campagne qui était contre la peine de mort, et there was a campaign against death penalty. Beau temps pour étendre in English, I don't know, nice time for drawing the clothes. I don't know how to translate that. Anyway, very I like this type of drawing. Very, very simple also. This one I like also. That was it was published at CSN, the labor union. I guess that was maybe 15 years, more than 15 years old. Yeah. So it's you have the gods, you have Dieu, and you have Allah. And en français, c'est quelle bande de cons. quelle bande de cons. And they look at the world and they're having a drink. I guess it's scotch with a nice cigar, and they're watching the world. So the world is a big fuss there. Dieu est amour, God is love, and God bless America. God forgives everything, and there's bombing, killing, and all that stuff. And I like the 99 and the 66 on Allah and Dieu, and they're laughing at us. Yeah, yeah. So I like, that's one of my favorite cartoons. Yeah, that was for Amnesty International, also for Raif Badawi. And that was sometimes the cartoon with Amnesty International, they are involved and they request something with the cartoon, so it's not very funny sometimes. Monsieur Trudeau, notre papa, the kids of the children of Raif Badawi are speaking. Monsieur Trudeau, notre papa a besoin de votre aide, ne l'abandonnez pas. And that was 5 years after he was in prison. And there was this campaign, Je suis Raif, also. So I remember Je suis Raif, and we had these badges. So this is inspired by Charlie Hebdo, Je suis Charlie. And I remember there was these badges that they made at Amnesty International, and Je suis Raif. And I went to Paris with this, and I went to the book fair, the Paris book fair, with my Je suis Raif, and nobody knew who was Raif Badawi. Oh. And they thought I was from Algeria or from Tunisia, because they thought my real name was Raif. Anyway. This one here is that was published in the Gazette. Maybe you don't remember, that was in 2016, if I remember correctly. And her name was Omaud Far, and she's a scholar. She's a psychologist. She's a professor in psychology also. And yeah, a professor at Concordia University. And she's a Canadian Iranian. And when she traveled to Iran for business and personal reason, she was arrested by the Revolutionary Guards and imprisoned. C'est une femme, Omaud Far, qui est iranienne, canadienne, et qui est professeure à l'Université Concordia à Montréal. Et en 2016, elle est allée à Téhéran et elle s'est fait arrêter. Et elle a été jetée en prison. And if I remember correctly, I think that Iran wanted to put some pressure on Canada, because Canada was, there was a businessman, was Iranian businessman who was a refugee in Canada. And I think that Iran, the Ayatollahs, wanted to trade Omaud Far with this businessman. Anyway, it was a very complicated situation because Canada didn't have any diplomatic relations with Iran. It was very complicated. And she spent 112 days in prison, and she was tortured, mentally tortured, and she was very, very afraid of dying. And I met her a couple of times at Amnesty International, and it's really special when you meet someone who was jailed and who was tortured. I mean, it's a real special condition. I mean, if you have a little empathy, sometimes you can wake up at night and you say, well, that could be me, that it was a terrible, terrible situation. Anyway, and this cartoon was run on the front page of the Gazette, thanks to Terry. So, and if you count the little bars here, I think there are 100 bars. And she was freed because the international community reacted, and many people in Europe, in America, mobilized themselves, and that's when she escaped. And that's another drawing also. And there's a Canadian goose bringing a letter here, pretty much like it reminds us of Amnesty International, because you have these writing marathons. Il y a des marathons d'écriture chaque année avec Amnesty International au mois de décembre. Tout le monde écrit des messages, des lettres aux prisonniers politiques pour les encourager. Et ça attire l'attention sur ces prisonniers politiques. Alors, ça peut être des journalistes, ça peut être des syndicalistes, ça peut être des artistes, etc. Et le fait d'attirer l'attention, souvent, ça va améliorer leurs conditions ou ça va les libérer. The writing marathons are very important because it brings attention to the political prisoner, not only political, but sometimes you have teachers, you have all sorts of people who are wrongly imprisoned in countries like China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, etc. And the fact that you bring attention to these prisoners, the conditions are better, and I think that 66% of the prisoners are liberated. And this particular drawing was inspired by a book that I wrote about Amnesty International, and this is it's called Letters to a Prisoner. So if I go back, so you see this is Omar Utfar, and in my book here you have the little prisoner here who receives a letter. So it's a book without words, a silent book, as they say, and but it was translated in a few languages, in Spanish, Italian, Korean, etc. And this is the situation of the prisoner here. And there's a little bird and there's a little rat here who brings letter to the prisoner, pretty much like the marathon, the writing marathon. And these letters really enlighten the prisoner when they receive letters like this. And this type of drawing here, the character with the big nose, ça rappelle un peu Bosque. It reminds us of Bosque, the illustrator, the cartoonist I showed you when I was a kid. So, and at the end, well, you see all the letters are coming from all over the world, and they're pouring into the prison, and the letters will stick to the prisoner a little bit like the feathers of to Icarus, who escapes from his prison. Alors, toutes les lettres vont se coller sur le prisonnier et il va pouvoir s'évader de sa prison et il va pouvoir rejoindre sa petite fille. In the book, also, I show when the prisoner is arrested because he's in a demonstration, and then he's sent to the prison. And surprisingly, this book, this silent book, I've been invited to schools, and from grade 1 to grade 6, I was in the same school, and I was able to talk about this book. And it may sound serious business for first graders, but if you have a teacher who explains, who talk about the fact that people are unjustly jailed, they are not criminals, they are not bandits, they are people for their ideas are in prison, and kids do not tolerate when something is not just. So it's about justice. It's about, so I was really surprised that it was when I was invited to many schools who get involved with the writing marathon of Amnesty International. There was a cartoon at the Gazette about the $15 billion Saudi arms deal, and that's for me that's pretty shocking, because as a country, Canada, I think we should resign this contract, because this is completely absurd. I mean, it goes so. This is Canada should take a stance concerning the sales of weapons, tanks. They don't call it tanks; they call it trucks, and they are used in Yemen. So I think that this is. I'm not very proud of Canada in this particular field here. So, and this is great to be able to express yourself as a cartoonist. This is a fantastic thing. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you say, all right, okay, I have this fantastic opportunity, and this is this is a golden opportunity. This is fun because this is great because you can say something, you know, instead of banging your head against the walls. You can draw something and you can publish it. So this is a fantastic opportunity to be a cartoonist. Ici, on a Monsieur Trudeau, and here we have Mr. Trudeau, who that was in a few years ago. So he apologizes, il demande pardon pour les autochtones, pour les réfugiés juifs qui ont été repoussés. Il demande pardon pour la communauté LGBTQ, pour les Italiens qui ont été maltraités, pour les Japonais, etc., qui ont été enfermés. And at the same time, you have all this collection of people behind him, and you have dictators or political figures, you know, from Russia, from China, from Myanmar, from Japan, from Africa, from Arabia, and they look at him and they're smiling a little bit because, you know, that's two different worlds. Here we have two different worlds, and this is, I have nothing against Mr. Trudeau. I think he's right in doing this thing. I mean, that's very nice. That's very courageous. But I think that we are living in two different worlds, you know. And when you travel abroad, you realize this, you know. Wes, who has been living in Cuba, I don't think that he can draw everything as a cartoonist. I've been to Vietnam. I've been to Cambodia. I've been to Thailand. And I've met people there who could be in real trouble in drawing cartoons against the government. So again, that's a cartoon I like because it shows reality. It shows how lucky we are to live in a country like Canada. This is about time, about chronology. J'aime bien ce dessin-là parce que ça a rapport avec le temps. On voit, ça c'est sur la Palestine, bien sûr, et on voit les Palestiniens qui disent « Ah, on était là il y a 1400 ans. » Et là, il y a les Juifs qui répliquent, qui disent « Non, on était là il y a 3000 ans, nous, tu sais. » Et il y a l'homme des cavernes en bas, le Cro-Magnon ou Néandertal qui dit « Non, j'étais là il y a 140 000 ans. » Ça me fait vraiment rire. C'est vraiment... oui, voilà, c'est ça. Alors, j'aime bien dessiner toujours un petit chat aussi qui est en bas ici, un petit chat ici, un petit chat jaune. J'aime bien rajouter ça ici. Et je pense qu'il n'y a pas d'espoir avec un sujet comme Israël. I think there's no hope the way it is, you know. This cartoon, when did I draw that? Maybe, at first, I forgot to write the date, to write the year when I drew the cartoon. And this is a mistake because a few years later, you forget what year. And now I write the date. And but that could be 20 years ago, that could be 10 years ago. So the situation doesn't change. And I think that the only way to change, I have a suggestion for the United Nations, and that's my suggestion.
Oh.
Yeah, so love, all you need is love. So you have to kiss, all right? You have to kiss. You have a Jew and you have a Palestinian, and they kiss and they make babies. Make babies. That's the solution.
Yeah.
only solution. And fuck off religion. Concentrate on kissing. And here you have a little bird here, and this bird is called in French it's Upfacier, and this is the Upa. It's called the Upo. That's the national bird of Israel, because I had some work to do concerning this bird recently, so I put it in the cartoon. So it's very, very romantic with the fireworks. I don't know, these are bombs. These are not fireworks. Anyway, very, very simple, and I think that's the best cartoons. You know, without I think you don't even need words. No, it could be only like this. And that's enough. That's enough. Yeah. So yeah. That's more serious business here. On tue la une. On tue la une. That's a French expression. That's what's the equivalent in English? that would be we cancel the front page, or we change the title of the cover. On tue la une. We kill the front page. That's what it means. And so that was, of course, Charlie Hebdo. And I drew this cartoon hours after the massacre in 2015 at Charlie Hebdo. And I read a few books written by survivors of the Charlie Hebdo massacre, by Riss, who is the actual editor, and also other people who were working at Charlie Hebdo were very lucky. They were lucky. They were wounded, seriously wounded. And that's pretty much the description. That's pretty much what was left a few minutes after the terrorists left. Alors ça, j'ai été très, très affecté par ce massacre de Charlie Hebdo, parce que c'était des caricaturistes qui étaient, je pense à Cabu, je pense à Charb, je pense à Wolinski, je pense à Tinius. C'est des gens intelligents. On peut dire, ah, ben, c'était des provocateurs, c'était des gens, des imbéciles, etc. Non, 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 non. C'était des gens très brillants. Quand on regarde leur travail, c'est des gens très, très, très intelligents, et en plus, des gens généreux, des gens ouverts. C'est des gens qui ne tolèrent pas la bêtise. Alors, ce n'étaient pas des gens qui étaient obsédés contre l'islam ou des choses comme ça. Ils s'attaquaient à toute forme d'idéologie. Ça aurait pu être le communisme, ça aurait pu être le pape, ça aurait pu être tout ce qui exerce une pression sur les hommes. Ils ne tolèrent pas la bêtise, et puis le fait que des hommes dominent d'autres personnes. Donc, ça m'a vraiment, quand on connaît leur travail, quand on connaît ces gens-là, on est vraiment ému que ces gens-là aient été massacrés. This is another cartoon, very less controversial. There were hundreds of cartoons that were made after the Charlie Hebdo massacre. And this is a cartoon in 2017 in the Gazette. And so florists, candles, flowers. And the point is that I don't remember why I drew these cartoons. There are so many things that happen in the world that could be in London, that could be in Paris, that could be I don't know. It's so there's a lot of emotion, but after there are so many events like that you lose the count. You're off balance. You don't know what's going on in the world. Something might happen in Toronto. Something might happen in.
Je pense que c'est le Bataclan.
Non, peut-être en 2017.
Peut-être.
Oui, c'est possible. C'est possible. Bataclan. Yeah, the terrible thing. Alors, voilà. Health, wealth, and happiness. They're kind of making good business here. That's another one also. I tried to do my David Lowe, but I'm not as good as him. And that was in Manchester. There was a massacre also in 2017, I remember. And there was a concert by Ariana Grande. And little girls, I think that 20 little girls were killed by someone who exploded himself. That was a terrible, terrible thing. Yeah, terrible thing. Yeah. And we shall never surrender. Yeah. But I had to make some research. J'ai dû faire des recherches pour savoir de quoi il s'agissait. J'avais un peu oublié. Il y en a tellement maintenant, c'est décourageant. Ça, c'est un peu plus léger, a little, little easier here. And but at the same time, right now in Quebec, that's a real issue, because we have foreign workers who are working in Quebec, coming from Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and they are working in the fields, but they're also working in what do you say, as meat packers in the meat plants, and the conditions are not very good. They're not very protected in case they are sick by COVID and stuff like that. So I think it's very funny, and that could be me there. when with the kids, we could go and pick up some blueberries, but on the other side of the fence, de l'autre côté de la clôture, on a ces travailleurs qui travaillent comme des forcenés, comme des fous. Alors ça, j'aime bien ce genre de... I like these kind of cartoons, social cartoons, yeah. Oh, here we have Terry and Mary and Sparky here, and that's I love drawing about Montreal also. So you have the Montreal here, and the buildings they are very recognizable. And you're walking, vous marchez. Est-ce que c'est correct? Est-ce que c'est bien? Because sometimes everybody's rolling all over the place. So I love this kind of drawing. I like that. I also like to very typical Montreal. And this Wilinski, I don't know if you know this place. It's a little joint in my land, and it's a little restaurant where they serve bologna sandwiches and stuff like that, cherry Coke, and it's been around for 500 years. I don't know. No, since 1942, I don't know, but nothing changed in that restaurant. Nothing changed. And Ruth Wilinski died in 2018. And I used to go and have a sandwich there, and it's a time machine. That's wonderful. You have to keep things like that in Montreal. These should be seen as museums. Christian Vachon, do you read me? This is very important. This is so I love drawing about that. I mean, this is important in a city like in Montreal, where Wolinski. Et toujours le petit chat qui est ici à côté. Et, ouais. Et c'est toujours plaisant quand on va dans un endroit comme ça, ma caricature est affichée chez Wolinski. Another thing also in Montreal, that's the homeless Jesus statue. That's on St. Catherine Street. And in front of the church, I don't remember the name, near l'Abbé and Eaton's. And actually, this cartoon is not really a cartoon because that's the way it was. A lot of people using their cell phones and taking pictures. And just a few yards away, you have this homeless person there. So this is very, c'est très étrange de voir des gens qui vont photographier comme ça. Et ça, le banc avec la personne sur le banc, et ben c'est une vraie statue, c'est fait en bronze comme ça. Et à côté, ben, on a quelqu'un qui est en train de crever de faim. Et puis bon, et ça, c'est une vraie situation. On voit les gens qui se photographient comme ça. Donc ça m'émeut beaucoup. Bon, une autre situation à Montréal aussi, another situation in Montreal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Lots of people. Yeah, it can be very dangerous sometimes. This drawing is about censorship, we say. So this little fellow here is about to start a drawing, but you have all sorts of people behind him. And I think that recently, for the last years, I think politically correctness has been more and more present in our lives. And I saw that also working for children's books also. It's a very serious situation. Yeah, so, but something can be worse than that. I would say that's auto-censorship, is that when there's nobody in your back, but you start wondering, am I drawing the good thing? Should I draw that? And at that point, then you're contaminated by that virus, and that's terrible because you lose the spontaneity to draw, and you have balance. You're always wondering, well, are they going to like my drawing? Maybe I shouldn't do that. Oh no, I won't do that, etc. And that's a terrible thing to do. And you can see that today. Sometimes you have committees or people looking at your drawings, and I think it's like a national sport, especially in children's literature. And you have 5 people sitting around your drawing and they're fighting, and there's at least one person who's going to stand up and say, oh, I think I found what's wrong with the drawing. There's nothing wrong with the drawing, but I saw it. That's the apple, the shoe, or they'll find something, and it's like a trophy, when they can find something in your drawing. That's a real problem. But 25 or 30 years ago, it wasn't like that. So this is an example also. There was a cartoon about the first fellow here. It says, I'm sorry, I cannot work on Saturday. I'm sorry, no Saturdays. And the second fellow here says, I cannot work after sunset. So the boss says to Sylvie, you're the one who will be working Saturday evening. But so this, I think this is very funny. I like this cartoon, but it was rejected, not by the Gazette, but by a labor union. And the word is, we don't touch that. Yeah, but that's very funny because, no, we don't touch that. No. They're really paralyzed for this, But I think that, if you're Jewish or if you're Muslim, sometimes you can laugh. Yes, I know I have Muslim friends, I have Jewish friends, and I discovered that they have a sense of humor, so it depends. But sometimes when it's related to that, the editor will panic and will say, no, we might as well scrap this drawing. This one is interesting. It was published at the Gazette, and that was in 2017. So we have our good friend Donald Trump here, and there was a problem between Canada and the United States concerning the dairy products, or I don't remember exactly, but there were some tariffs and stuff like that. Il y avait des problèmes entre le Canada et les États-Unis à propos des produits laitiers. Et Trump, toujours, était là en train de mettre des bâtons dans les roues au Canada. And so there was a big fuss around that. And the American cow is saying to the Canadian cow, saying, oh, bullshit. And they told me at the Gazette, the editor, ED, told me that you cannot use the word bullshit. And I said, what? Because the word bullshit is used in French. It's been transformed also as in a French word. We don't say bullshit, we say bullshit, de la bullshit. And you write it the French way also. And it's a very cute word. It's a very bullshit. Arrête avec la bullshit. Et they said, no, there are 2 words you cannot use in your cartoons. What's the first one? Fuck you. And the second one is bullshit. But I said, these are cows. Maybe they can use the word bullshit. No. So that's the cartoon that was published, but I think the first version was better from my point of view. And if you look very closely, you can see that compared to the other one, I had to paste here a new bubble over the other one. And that's how I work,
Old school.
I work on Photoshop. So I cut a piece of paper, I write, and I stick it, and then I scan my drawing again. That's how primitive I am. This one is good. That's a good one. A few years ago, there was a terrible event in Quebec City. You remember this massacre at the mosque in Quebec? And a few people were killed, a terrible event. And later, much later, months and months later, the Muslim community in Quebec asked if it was possible to have a cemetery or a plot in the cemetery for the Muslims. And so there was a big fuss around that, and there was a lot of controversy about that. And so my drawing, this is the idea I came up with. So you have the worms, they're munching here, and one of them says halal or kosher, I don't mind. And me, I'm vegan, Calvin. And they didn't like that at the Gazette. ED didn't like that very much. And this is how it ended up. So the word kosher and halal disappear, and it all tastes the same to me. And me, I'm vegan. So the word calvaire is not a big swear word. It's not like tabarnak or cardis. It's very, very mild, calvaire. But anyways, I had to make a compromise because they would not publish the cartoon. And Edie said, I remember she said, okay, we're going to run it. We're going to publish it. But I think it's gross. Oh,
Whoa.
yeah. So, okay. But I think it's great. I like it. I like it. And I'm going to give you a scoop tonight for everybody. You know what? You're going to end up like this in the cemetery. All of you at one point, there will be little worms who will eat you, whatever you are, kosher, halal, I don't care.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's very funny because at at the Gazette, Edie she has a very sharp eye, and she was reading what was written on the tombstone here in Arabic and in Hebrew to know if everything was kosher, and that's very very funny for me. Anyway, and that's the sketch. I'll just show you a sketch. I always do a very rapid sketch, and then je fais un dessin très, très rapide, et puis après, je fais mon dessin final. I'm going to talk about a children's book that was published a few years ago. It's called L'Arbre à gants. And that's a pun because in French, it means the tree with the gloves, L'Arbre à gants. So that's the word that I invented. And in this book, you have a kid, that's the Korean version. It was published in maybe 20 languages, very, very popular book. And this little kid here climbs the tree, and he's the only one to be courageous enough and brave enough to climb the tree. And from the tree, he sees everything in the village. So here what he sees. He sees the clergyman, the priest here, watering his flowers. And the priest is watching the baker's, the wife, the baker's wife who is sunbathing here. And here you have the grandmother who is stealing cherries from the neighbor's tree. And here we have the daughter of the notary, Marie Chantal, who is kissing Kevin, who is working at the scrapyard. And here you have the two jumelles Fafouin, the two sisters who are stealing bottles in at the grocery store in the, how do you say, l'entrepôt, in the warehouse of the grocer. And they go back and they sell the bottles to the grocer, and then they go back to the warehouse and they take other bottles and stuff like that. And this book was published in many languages, so it's a little political also because it was published in the United States, but this image was they removed this image because they said no, we cannot publish this. The other ones are right, but this one, no, it's impossible because of the priest. And the editor who is in New York is very open-minded, but she said, you know, Jacques, we cannot get this book in so many states, in some states that we're not taking any chances, and you know, for the book reviews and stuff like that. So the book was published in the United States without this image. So there's and it's funny because it's been translated in many languages, but there are only 2 countries in the world where there was censorship, and that was United States, and the other one was Iran. That's very funny. In Iran, they kept the priest, but they put a blanket over the lady here. So it doesn't make sense at all. I don't understand. Anyway, but they kept the priest. And the other one, you remember, you remember here, Kevin was kissing Marie Chantal on his motorcycle. Well, they in Iran, they made Marie Chantal disappear. So for me, that's very, and sometimes people ask me, well, why do you accept that? You know, you should refuse, you know, because this is part of your work. But at the same time, I spoke with the Iranian editor, and she told me also, Jacques, this is the compromise we have to make, because otherwise the book is not published, and we like the book, and they are open-minded, but they don't have the choice. And the thing is that when I go to schools, when I visit schools, well, I speak to the children and I show the original work, and I say, I ask the kids, well, try to find the picture that was censored, and they try to find the picture, and more than often they don't find it. Very surprisingly, in Quebec or in Ontario, they don't find it. They come up with other pictures, the kid in the tree while there's a storm, and oh, that's dangerous because of the lightning. No, that was okay. So it's related to politics also. This is my most recent book. It's called Le Tricot. It's about a scarf that was made by a grandmother. So that's a grandmother who was knitting specialist, and she had this scarf here that was made with different wools. That was the first scarf she knitted in her life, and with different wools from different events. So by example, the little red part here was from a red wool that served to knit a sweater for her brother, and her brother was a worker in a mine, and so this is an allusion to La Grève de l'Amiante. La Grève de l'Amiante was the asbestos strike in 1949. It's the most famous strike in Quebec. It was a terrible strike at the time of Duplessis. So the grandmother says that, that's the red sweater, and he uses the sweater as a red flag, as a communist flag. So maybe the children don't understand this, but sometimes when you have the grandparents reading the children's book and they say, I remember this in 1949, that was a very terrible strike. And oh yeah, and the little girl, she runs from her house because and when leaving the house, there's a thread, that is stuck in the door, and elle court et le fil se défait. And then the entire book is she's traveling all over the city. She travels in a park, and she crosses the streets, and she's running in front of different shops, and she meets workers and also. And she doesn't realize that her scarf is unrolling herself, is undoing herself. And in one part of the book, she goes next to a McDonald's statue like this. And the story is that when she arrives at school, she realizes that, my God, my scarf, it almost disappeared. So she has to recollect the wool, and to run back to her home. And when she comes back, she has a old batch of wool in her arm. And by the time she came back, something happened to the McDonald's statue here. So so why do you need that in a children's book? Sometimes kids don't understand that, but that's all right. That's all right. One day they will understand and say, oh, I remember. Yeah, okay. So I'm pretty lucky to have an editor who was a special person, who is very open-minded for these kind of stuff. And again, when I work on children's book, I please myself. Sometimes people ask me, do you think about the children when you write about? No, I never think about the children. I write for myself. I write to please myself when I was a kid, and that's the way it is. That's a cartoon in the Gazette, inspired by this, and that was when that's the statue of McDonald at Place du Canada, and I think that the statue is not there anymore. I think it had been removed. I think there was a terrible controversy, but before it was removed, before it was beheaded, there was actions like these, red pen on the head. So that's something to explain to the kids also. That's you enter history, and it's not just funny things, you can, and kids are interested into this thing, why do they do this? And that's very important. That's a very important transmission. So that's about it. So I think I have finished with my presentation.
Oh, bravo.
Oh, merci.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening me. You're listening to me. I mean,
Arrête de partager l'écran, s'il te plaît.
ah oui, oui, c'est vrai. D'accord.
See the team.
Voilà.
Oh, look at all these nice people.